Hey everybody, Dr. Chris here. Thanks for joining me again. Thanks for listening here. So today we're gonna go right for the jugular. All right, we're not messing around today. You know, with fitness and wellness, you can spend days and days and days talking about a single particular topic, intermittent fasting, high intensity interval training, all sorts of different things. But today we're gonna get to the foundations, okay? So forget all that other fluff and details. We're gonna get to just some general foundational points that have been shown to be very effective to help people with some of their wellness goals. Okay, so you guys are all little snowflakes. I know that, and you know that. So this is where we start. Okay, once you implement these and you have these figured out, and you give it 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then you reassess. Okay, I always push monitoring, self-monitoring to see where you're going and if you're going in the right direction. So if after a few weeks you say, "Hey, this isn't for me," or "This part isn't," then you can adapt and change the plan a little bit, and that's when you start getting into some of those other kind of fun and interesting things to talk about. So let's get to the stuff here. So the foundation here is what I'm talking about. So this specifically is the National Weight Control Registry. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. The National Weight Control Registry is an effort out of Brown Medical School. Okay, so they took close to 3,000 people who had lost 30 pounds and kept it off for a year. Okay, so that's really good. I mean, 2 thumbs up, right? Most people who are trying to lose weight don't lose 30 pounds, and most people who lose 30 pounds don't keep it off for a year. Okay, so this is pretty impressive and tough to do. And so the researchers said, "Hey, you people, what'd you do? That's pretty good. What'd you do? How'd you do it?" And then we can share the information. And just to give you an idea about the group, 45% of the people did it all on their own, okay? They weren't teamed up with a healthcare person or a program or anything at all. They just did it on their own. Now, the other 55% of people did have some sort of assistance with it. 78% were women, okay? So the majority were women. The average age, or the mean age, was 48 years old. So that gives you some idea of where we're coming from here with the data set, okay? So let's get into what they did to lose those 30 pounds and keep them off. Okay, first, they ate breakfast. Okay, now, Dr. Weber, you telling me to intermittent fast and not to eat breakfast. I know, and that's where you get into some of the, maybe for this person or that person, or shake things up a little bit. But this big group of people who lost a lot of weight and kept it off, they all ate breakfast, okay? And all sorts of reasons and theories as to why breakfast helps. But for this group, it did, okay? So if you want to start out, I think starting by eating breakfast is a good start, okay? The second thing is regular weighing, okay? Now, I extrapolate this a little bit to mean regular monitoring in general. But what they did is they weighed. I know people have all sorts of emotional relationships with their scale, but this group weighed themselves at least once a week, okay? So at least once a week, they were checking in. Now, like I said, I think you should monitor all sorts of things, right? I know it's a hassle up front, but it helps so much. So just, if you can be a little strict in the beginning, just to see how you do. I mean, most people do so much better with it. And then it often gets easier, right? I mean, the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, what's a cup of cottage cheese? How much oatmeal is this? After a couple of weeks, you know exactly what it is. You don't have to measure every single time. But you got to put the effort in up front. And with exercise, keeping track of your, how much weight you use, the reps, the sets, all that stuff. Because honestly, my brain's not going to remember what I did a week ago. Okay, so you have it written down so you remember. And it helps you adjust course if you need to. Okay, so number 1, these folks ate breakfast. Number 2, they self-monitored specifically with weighing themselves at least once a week. Okay, so breakfast, self-monitoring with weighing, and then physical activity. So this might be one. Of course. Physical activity is such a broad term, right? You can get a doctoral degree on physical activity. But what these people did, I don't know if they had doctoral degrees, but what they did is they walked, okay? In about an hour a day. So that's more than the general guideline, or the guidelines for the general population, which, to remind you, is 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week, plus 2 days of resistance training. Now, what these people in this group did was an hour a day of moderate intensity exercise. So that would be, just to remind you of what moderate intensity exercise is, that's walking at an intensity that's enough to get your heart rate up, but you can still easily have a conversation. Okay, so that's moderate intensity. 60 minutes a day is what they did. Okay, eat breakfast, monitor, specifically with weighing yourself once a week or more. Get physical activity. All right, this group did 60 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. And then the fourth thing is decreased sedentary time, and specifically it's less than 10 hours of TV watching per week. Okay, now again, you can stretch that out and say, which makes sense to me, less than 10 hours of screen time, looking at phones, looking at computers, laptops, all that stuff, sitting and reading a book. Is that an issue? I don't know, but this is specifically TV is what they mentioned. Okay, so don't be watching this. Again, I say this every time. Don't be watching this, excuse me, unless you're at 9 hours and 59 minutes, then you can catch the end of this one here. All right, so minimize how much sedentary time you have in general, okay? And then the last thing, and please don't throw anything at the screen when I say this, but they followed a low-fat diet, okay? And calorie-restricted diet, but low-fat. So there's all sorts of stuff out there about how fat's not bad, and some of the stuff I put out saying fat's not bad. But for this group, low-fat, calorie-restricted diet, okay? So again, that's one of those details I like to get into a little bit, so don't get too upset with me for saying that, but I'm just the messenger here. These folks, low-fat, low-calorie diet. That's it. That's it, right? So it sounds very simple overall, but most people don't do these things. So implement these, get them started right now, and give it a couple weeks, okay? And see what happens, all right? It'll take a little bit of time, but these are the foundations that then we build off of with all the other ornaments and fancy stuff that we can work on. Okay, so just to review, National Weight Control Registry, bunch of people who lost a bunch of weight, 30 pounds or more, and kept it off for a year or more. And what they did, they tended to eat breakfast, self-monitor by weighing themselves at least once a week, minimizing TV time to 10 hours a week or less, getting enough physical activity, specifically walking about an hour a day, and then they followed up, again, I'll cringe, a low-fat and also a calorie-restricted diet. Okay, so start there, see where it takes you. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Be sure to schedule your free 30-minute initial phone consultation by sending me an email or by visiting our website at refinedwellnessconsulting.com.